Hello, hello. Welcome back to Mentally a Badass. I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, Annie, a national board certified health and wellness coach who's helped over 700 clients from all walks of life achieve confidence, wellness, and success. Annie is known for her passion and dedication to her clients' transformation, celebrating their personal and professional growth with genuine enthusiasm. She's also the author of Shit I Wish I Knew in High School, a fun and empowering book full of real life lessons to help others embrace their mistakes and keep moving forward. So, welcome to the podcast.
For having me.
I'm so sorry to chat with you. We literally chatted for like 30 minutes already. Just about like honestly, should have clicked record on that. It's so much fun and I this is going to be a really good conversation. So, I'm excited today to talk about confidence and self-esteem because I feel like that's super important, especially for people who, I feel like majority of the people in the world had some time in their life where they struggle with their self-esteem. So, I'm so excited to get into
Yeah.
that. I'm so excited to get into that. In every Mentally About Us episode, I like to dig deep into your past. So let's start with your early life. Did you always feel confident, or was your self esteem something you had to work on growing up?
I had to work on it. I got older, it was definitely easier, but I'm really going back. So I was always bigger than everyone. And I mean like taller, actually like weighed more and I was taller. But I got my period at 9 years old. It was like developed before everyone. Like everyone. My most of my friends didn't get their period for like at least 3 years later. Already I felt outsider. I had
Yeah.
friends, but I was taller than every guy. Every single guy in my class. So that was another thing. And of course, like my body was different. Yeah, that was that. And then I remember seventh grade. You know how there's the stories that stick with you of trauma? Like,
Yeah,
right? I don't have to tell
absolutely.
you.
I'm an
Uh
expert.
I'm like, oh, you know about this? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in seventh grade and this like, oh, nice boy made fun of my hairy arms. And I was like, because also I'm Italian, so like I have like dark, thick hair. So right, I went home and I cried to my mom. I'm like, I have hairy arms, and he said this in English class in front of the whole class. My mom was like, "Well, do you want to shave them? If you start though, you're gonna have to shave them for like forever. Like once you shave them, you shave them." And I was like, "Get the razor, the razor." Oh yeah, those are the two big things. Just like growing up in a body that was different than everyone else's. And then that one event reminds me of like a really sad time. Like that was a sad. What? How old are you at seventh grade? 12, 13?
Yeah, I would say well, it depends on the part of the year, of course, but I would say, yeah, mostly 12 is the average age.
And that's
So
hard.
you're
That's
so you
hard.
were a preteen.
I was a
And
preteen.
yeah, and those years are actually like the most critical times when it comes to wanting to feel validated and want to be, a part of the crowd because every human being has not an urge, but like want to be a part of something, want to be a part of a community. And that
Yes.
is those years, 6, 7, and 8 are like the peak, like middle school. So
Totally agree.
that totally makes sense. And I was trying to think like if I had any of those moments. I mean, I've been bullied a lot, so I probably have like a million and one
Mm,
stories, and people have picked at every part of my body. Well, not every part. I'm being a little dramatic here, but the main,
love that.
but the main thing was my eyes that set me apart from everybody else because I have on my right eye, I was born with a cataract, and then I had surgery 1 month, and so they had to take the human lens out of my eye. So one eye is bigger than the other, like not the physical eyeball, but like the like I guess I don't know, I guess the uh,
Side of
yeah,
the
so like you have like different layers of eye, like
lids. I don't
yeah,
know.
well, because so basically you have a human lens. So mine was taken out, so it just like it looks smaller than the other. I'm like showing you right now if you can kind of see the difference. Yeah, like
Never noticed.
you know,
Like maybe in
everybody's
person, but truly.
yeah, no, everybody says that. So anyway, and I also had a lazy eye. So like this eye would go this way, and just you can't control that, right? So
Mm,
people pick that out. They mostly picked it out in high school. they would call me a cross-eyed bitch.
Original phrase. Yeah, you're so clever.
But you know what the funny part too is that like I don't know who called me that because at that time there was form spraying. I don't know if you heard about it. Form spraying, which is like you ask anonymous questions,
Anonymous.
and so
Me
people use it to like destroy me and call me all these things. Are we around the same age? How old are you?
too.
Oh, okay. Oh, my boyfriend's 32. How fun. Yeah, I'm 29. So we're not too far. We're not too far from each other. But yeah, there was form spraying and people would use it to like bully me and such. So I got that comment there. But a lot of that got called was like ugly and weird. I guess because like my personality is not like anybody else. But you know what's kind of crazy though, and I kind of want to like mention is that you know, like there's a neurotypical brain and neurodivergent brain. So like at that time, people didn't really know that or
Oh,
really
they
understand
definitely
that.
weren't talking about that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I have a neurodivergent brain. So that's like completely puts me. So it's kind of crazy. I feel like the neurodivergent brain people are the ones who like get bullied the most is because there's yeah, it's just crazy. And you know, neurodivergent brains are actually like people are actually like pretty smart people if they put in like the correct learning environment. So, but I grew up in like Catholic school and there was kind of like only one way of learning. So,
Same. Same.
yeah. Oh, we're Catholic school girlies. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, before I go completely off topic, because I feel like you and I literally can go like on and on about something, I don't know, something random. We'll go completely somewhere else and I'll be like, what are we talking about again? Like that happens to me.
Main subject. Yeah.
Yeah, what was the main topic again? What are we talking about today? Okay, so you told us a little bit about some challenges you had with self-esteem because a boy was an asshole to you. Okay, that long story short.
Yeah. If we were to sum up
So
that one.
exactly. So what is a specific moment or experience that made you realize you wanted to focus on health and wellness? Like what made you want to go into this career wise?
So if I were to talk like general coaching for a moment, it's definitely my sisters. They are 12 years younger than me. Pretty much since the day they were born, I was like, well, how can I be a role model? I am in love with these two people. So growing up, when I would see parents who are like, my kid could do no harm, I was like, ugh, you're giving me the ick. But then I have my sisters, and as they grew up, I'm like, they could do no harm. So a lot of childhood trauma. So growing up in a strict Catholic home, there were 6 of us kids. When my sister was born, it was just me and my 3 brothers. So it was interesting. So I was definitely interested in psychology, started studying psych and got my bachelor's in it. While I was studying it, pretty much the answer was you go into research or you become a therapist. It's like the 2 big options they allowed. Really didn't want to explore trauma work myself personally, but just for others, wasn't my fit. I think everyone should have a therapist at some point in life. It's not that I'm against therapy. I think it's a beautiful thing. But then I found coaching and I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what I want. Everyone told me I was crazy. They're like, are you freaking crazy? Because this was like 2010, in 2010, 2015. And they're like, you are absolutely nuts. Make no money. You should just do this part time. You gotta, like, you can't do this. And then I went for it. And then I got my master's in integrative wellness coaching. Everyone thought I was crazy. And I became a successful coach. And I want my sisters to see that. Like, people can tell you you have a 5% success rate and still be in that 5%.
I think that pod match was definitely pod matching because I have the same thought. I have a bachelor's in psychology myself.
Ooh.
And yeah. And so the thing is like, oh yeah, go into counseling, therapy, do that. But so my reason that I didn't get into it is because I was struggling myself a lot. And I feel like if I was someone's therapist, you obviously have to be professional and everything, right? I feel like I would cry with them because I wasn't stable myself. Like I needed to work on myself.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, okay, like I like first of all, I know getting a master's is gonna be expensive. That's one thing. And then second, I'm just like, I just don't feel like that's the way I should go, you know? I mean, when I went into doing getting my bachelor's in psychology, I was like, I want to help people, you know? Like I went through growing up feeling like unheard and no one cared and whatever. So yeah, so I went to be a therapist, but I didn't, sorry, back. I I went first, I did. But then I realized like sophomore year or whatever, junior year, I was like, no, it's not for me. But then out of nowhere, I got accepted into the Disney college program. So I worked at Disney. Yeah, that literally came out of nowhere like that. Like you know how you have like a plan in life? Like that wasn't in the plan. But it just like I just said, oh, let me just apply for it just for like why not? Right? And then I
Yeah.
got in and I was shocked. And hey, that helped with my confidence and self-esteem because it's Disney and Disney is not easy to get into and to work for, right? Like the acceptance rate was like I think 10% was around there. Like it was very, very low. So I felt super grateful and I was like, wow, I actually feel like I'm worth something here, right? And that completely took a 360 on my self-esteem. So then I worked for the company, love what it stand for, and it really helped with my mental health, right? So I stayed with the company and I worked there for 5 years. And then low key last 2 years kind of destroyed my mental health. Anyway, that's a
That
whole
was
other.
sad.
Yeah. I actually have a whole podcast episode about it, like work, like trauma. I actually like it was me and my like former leader that it was both of us talking about
I
it.
saw the title, but I didn't. Oh, listen to that one. Dang.
Yeah,
Okay, well I know where
yeah,
to find that one.
yeah. It's like part one and part two. We had a lot to talk about. So yes, and then I quit Disney, and then now I am a self-employed full time. But yeah. So anyway, so I created Mentally About Us in 2021, and I'm like, okay, this is how I'm gonna help people. And so this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's like I'm also helping more than just like, I mean, even if I just help one person, like that's the greatest, like amazing thing, right? But like with social media and the internet, obviously it's so different now than when we first went into college. And it's like I have this
Yeah.
opportunity where I can help thousands of people. Like, how amazing is that? I'm like, this is just like, it feels so much more fulfilling, right? So that's kind
Yes.
of like my story, and that's like what I'm doing right now. But another thing I want to mention here is that, like, when you know someone is telling you that you're crazy, you know you're doing the right thing.
Exactly how
Like,
I feel.
that is exactly like when you know, oh, you're calling me crazy. You think I can't do it? You think I'm going to be broke and not make money? Great, I'm going to go do it. Like,
And also that's so the I say this, like that's also maybe the red flag, or I'm not gonna come up with the best verbiage right now, but that's also when you realize, who am I surrounding myself with?
true.
Like, okay, time to switch it up because I don't need haters in my friend group.
Yeah. And it can be so challenging. I feel like, you know what I love? The one thing I really do love about doing this podcast as well is that I get to meet like minded people, right? I get
Yeah.
to meet people who think differently. And when you go through trauma and when you go through when you go through shit, pretty much, it really like changes the way you think about things. And it just puts you in a position where you kind of have like no choice but think a certain way to survive and such. So, I mean, I've had stories from like all over the place. Like I've had stories about people being raped, by people who witnessed murder, by people. Yeah, I've got like stories from everywhere. Like even people from different countries bringing in their stories, and it's like it's really opening, right? It's just crazy. So and then I meet people
Yeah.
like you who are like coaches. Like I've interviewed other. Like I noticed that Pod matches like a lot of coaches that I
I
interview.
don't really see
Yeah,
the interviewees, just the interviewers.
yeah. So if you're here as a host, you'll see all that. Like I'm both. I'm a host and a guest on Podmatch.
Okay.
Yeah. So I at first I just joined as a host, but I'm like I really want to be on other people's podcasts. Like I really want to be a guest. So I just became both. I see both sides. Gotta cut that part out because it's not really relevant. But yeah, I noticed a lot of coaches. So on Podmatch, every person that I've interviewed, I have created such an amazing connection with
Ooh,
people.
nice.
It's beautiful. And I'm like, I love Podmatch. Podmatch
Yeah.
is so cool. So yeah, so I think what you were saying before is about surrounding yourself with the people that align with your purpose and such. So
Mm.
it's also just can be like, how do you feel where it can be people who are super close in your life, right? Like, I don't know, a parent, a cousin, a really good friend you grew up with, like how does that make you feel when they don't align? Like do you I guess my question is like, do you stay close with them? Do you not? I'm not gonna say distant because that doesn't sound right, but you kind of get my question here. It's like, how do you react to that? Like, how do you feel like like, how do you move forward with that person? Like, do you keep them in your life? Do you have a conversation? Like, yeah.
Question. Great question. So try to slowly distance myself. Like, I guess that is the best word I could use right now is slowly distance myself. But like, I'll stop reaching out. I'll stop answering the phone calls. It's not that I'll never talk to them again, but I don't need that energy. Especially when I started studying energy work, I'm like, oh, hell no. I am not doing this. Like, growing up, I think this is part of like the primal need to be a part of a community. I just wanted friends. Like I was okay with dealing with the crap because I just wanted friends and things to do. But as I got older, I mean, my group became so small because I had zero tolerance. Like that's kind of what it came down to, zero tolerance. So now I only want to surround myself by much as possible like high achieving people. That doesn't mean that you have to be making a ton of money. What I mean is like you're continuously growing and you're a lifelong learner. I don't hang out with people who drink for the most part, especially binge drinking. Like,
Mm.
don't go to bars anymore. Those aren't my people. So just like little lifestyle changes. Don't hang out with people who cheat on their partner. It's just certain things where it's just hard nose for me anymore. Or it's hard nose for me now.
Yeah. Do you ever have like moments where like when you first started doing that, like feel like a kind of like guilt? Because like for me personally, I'm the kind of person where I like the way I was brought up, the way I was raised is that as long as someone's not a jerk to me or an asshole or treating me bad, like they can be like my friend, right? But that's what I learned like growing up. This is what my mother taught me. And it's good advice, but then now as I grow up and I'm being an adult and personal development is so important and growing and you learn so much, it's like although that's good advice to a mother to give a daughter, so you make sure that you don't have like asshole people in your life. But of course, my mother didn't have the whole like personal development growing up like we have right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you ever like feel guilty? Like, although this friend is like not treating you like a jerk, like they're really kind to you and they really are a good friend, but it's like they're just not on like your level of growth or or what if they're like, okay, actually, yeah, if they're cheating on their partner, I would probably distant myself as well. Or I'll be like, what are you doing with your life? Like, I would literally straight up
I don't
say
ethically
something.
align with
Yeah,
you. I
no,
don't morally
yeah,
align with you.
yeah. I
And
guess with that, I wouldn't feel guilty. Yeah, that I wouldn't feel guilty. But yeah, yeah. If I have a friend that's like being horrible, okay, bye. Like, yeah, that's easy. That's easy to distant, right? But like, for me, like I've had like good friends in my life that are like have I've grown up with, but they're not they don't think the way I think, right? And it's not like they're bad people. It's just like I feel bad. It's like I don't want to like I guess what makes sense is like what you were saying. You just don't reach out to them. Like if they reach out to me, then I guess it's a different thing. Like then again, I also have to realize that not everybody is on this earth thinking like, oh, I want to be a entrepreneur. I want to grow here. I want to grow there. Like some people are just on this earth, like working a regular job and just on the weekends, just enjoying like life. Not saying like
content.
yeah, exactly my point. So it's like, do you have anybody in your life like that where it's like, do you distance yourself from them or do you like, you know what I mean? Like they're not an extreme, like binge drinking or doing anything unethical, but they're not like it's kind of like in the middle. You know what I mean?
Actually, at one point, I had a best friend like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found is it was really hard to relate to them. They weren't a bad
True.
person, but had no drive, had
Mhm.
absolutely no drive. And I don't think you need to have a college degree to have drive, but I think you should read a book. Like, I think you should be, probably heard this phrase, but what they say is you're the sum of the top 5 people you hang out with.
Mhm.
If I'm around all these people who aren't ambitious, don't have any goals, aren't accomplishing things, and the goal may be to be happy in a relationship or to have a loving family. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be career success, doesn't have to be financial, but like, what are we working towards? Because I'm working towards a
Yeah.
lot. So I really want, I don't want the negativity and I don't want energy vampires. And in my mind, like, if you're not growing, you're dying. Well, we're all
Yeah.
dying, but like you're
No, I get me.
decaying faster.
I
So
Yeah, no, I honestly like I've heard that quote as well. I don't know where I heard it. It was a book or whatever, but it's true. It's like if you're not growing as a person, you're pretty much dead already. like it's true. And like there's been times in my life, like right now I'm at like a high right now where I'm in a group coaching like their 90-day thing right now. So like every Tuesday I meet with these people. Like I'm in like that. I'm doing like a habit tracker now and I feel great, right? And then also like I like to read books too. Like I read a bunch of like personal development books. Like my favorite is called The Slight Edge. Have you heard of it?
Yes, but that's a kind of older one. Am I
Yeah,
remembering
I know.
correctly?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
In
It
a good
is, but
way.
it's
In a good
yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah.
Oldie
Yeah,
but a
but it's
goodie.
exactly, it's so valuable, and it's like it's pretty much talks about like habits and like every little thing you do. It's like a snowball effect, right? So I read that book twice. I think I'm gonna read it again, honestly, because it's so good, and it's also just so like it just feels good. Like you're feeding your brain with that, and it's like these, as you were saying, like these people are not bad people. It's just like they don't also know. I feel like another thing too is like getting into this world, you have to like meet somebody who's part of this world and you have to make a decision like, hey, do I want to be influenced by this person? Do I want to grow with this person? Or it's like, nah, I'm good. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's,
And
and
making that choice.
yes, exactly. And it's like for me, like, I want people to like grow and such, right? I actually like the person who has grown so much in my life, I would tell you is my boyfriend. My boyfriend.
Mhm.
He is such a different human being right now. Before, like when I met him, I like what I really loved about him was like how he treated me, like how like I honestly I rejected him for about a year. But then the kind of effort that he made, and it was just, he was that person that if something tragic happened to me, like I would go to him. So that's when you kind of knew, right? And also
Nice.
he
That's
moved the
your
whole
person.
right. And also he moved across the country for me too. He went
Love
from like
that.
Washington State to Florida. So, but anyway, but his lifestyle would be a lifestyle that like you wouldn't really agree with, right? And like the drinking, the like not really like having goals or anything like that. But the reason he was like that is because he does have a lot of trauma and he was a foster kid and he's been through a lot, right?
Mm.
And I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I like to consider that as in why he is the
Right.
way he is, right? So another thing too, it's like he also was just always around people who would be just like that, right? So when you're surrounded by that environment, you're gonna act like that. And he's never, I asked him, like, have you ever met somebody like me that is pushing for your growth and having goal? He's like, no. He told me no. And I'm like, that explains it. And it's
Explains it
and it's
all.
exactly
Totally.
exactly. And it's not like you don't want to grow. It's just that you didn't have someone to push you, right? So anyway, ever since he met me, and we've been dating for almost 3 years, he doesn't even drink anymore. He doesn't drink anymore. He doesn't smoke anymore. He's so into the gym. He's studying to be a personal trainer. Like what? Like he's honestly, it's like he is such a huge transformation. And I do believe like I'm a big influence on a lot of people, but I guess with him and I, like I have a bigger influence because like we do live together and everything. So
All right.
and he really values my opinion. Like out of everybody in his life, like he values my opinion the most. And it wasn't easy to get where he is. Like we've had moments where we'll argue because he wouldn't get it, and like we've been through some really tough patches in our life where we like almost broke up, but when you get through it's kind of like it's like, oh wow, like this was meant to happen. And so my point
Right.
is that I'm his person that he met to get into this world. So I just feel like, oh, I just wish like everybody can have that one person. Like, so my question is for you, was there like a particular person that I guess was kind of like a mentor or someone who was like kind of, I guess, like, I mean, you did mention like you had a decision to go into this world based off of like, oh, this is for me, the coaching thing. But is there a person in mind that was, I guess, already in that whole like personal development world that inspired you to get like, did you have like that one person, like how I am to my boyfriend?
Didn't say it was a person I knew. It was a coach that I studied. Like that's another thing I try to tell clients is I teach them about like the 5 people you surround yourself with. What I say is, okay, if no one comes to mind, I understand. Go find a person in the field that you respect and start studying them. And when you surround yourself with them, that means you're listening. or like reading their books, listening to them, following them on social media, signing up for their newsletter. Some people don't have it.
Yeah.
Some of my clients are international and they're like, my parents won't even talk to me about mental health. They won't even bring up the word. Like, for example, in my family, my mom's different, a little different now, but growing up, it was like, you have to give this to God and you only talk to a priest about this. Tell anyone else, don't tell anyone outside the family. It's just a priest. And I think people who are faith-based, that's a beautiful thing if it works for them. Fantastic, beautiful. But it didn't work for me. And I think there should always be more than one option for who you turn to talk. Oh, yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. And when you said that, because I was thinking like, who was the person in my life? And I mean, I feel like I had multiple, depending on the phase and stage of my life. But what you were saying, and I feel like my personal growth really started when I was watching a lot of YouTube videos. Like that's what it was. Like at first I was just watching like comedy videos, lifestyle videos, but it was the lifestyle videos that got you to like want to be like them. Like, oh, like how have their life together. Like, oh, morning routine, I wake up, I look at the birds out, like like you're I mean, I know it sounds very like cliche, but
Totally. Yeah.
but you have but you have to start somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, even if it does sound super cliche, like us in our head, we know that like if you wake up and you read a book or you journal, like that's kind of like, oh, that's basic stuff, but it may not be basic to other people. So that's like you had to
Learn that
start.
too.
Yes, exactly. So like
Yeah.
sometimes I like think a certain way and I'm like, isn't that like common sense? I'm like, no, it's really not. It's yeah, just like
That with
learning
my
that.
clients, I was like, holy crap, you, Annie, you've been studying this for over 10 years. So this is, and you've talked about this hundreds of times, but this person's just new to the self-development world. They have no idea about these concepts. So I'm teaching something that I've said 100 times and they're like, my gosh, that's when I knew I'm doing my jobs. Cause I'm like, hell yeah, I'm teaching you something new. Great. This is fantastic.
It feels so great, and, like, I do, like,
Yeah.
social media coaching, and there's, like, some things that I would, like, tell my client, they'd be like, "Oh, I didn't know that." I'm like, in my head, that's like, I already like, "Oh, really? You didn't know you can do that?" And it's like, "Oh, wait." And that was kinda like that same aha moment where it's like,
Yeah.
so even though I'm, like, saying certain, like, advice where I just think it's common sense, it's not, and I'm actually doing a great job. So it's like, it just knowing that you're doing that just feels so great. But let's transition to let's talk about how you stay mentally strong in the face of challenges. I'm sure your life is everyone's life is stressful. I guess my question is like what self-care, what coping mechanisms like do you do to like kind of I guess keep your life together?
A few things. So number one, it was removing the toxic people.
Yes.
Beginning that can feel lonely, but I'm sure you've also heard this phrase of like, but when you remove things, you make room for the right things.
Mhm.
So it was removing the toxic people, spending little to no time on them. I have an amazing partner. An amazing partner. I'm so in love with him. I am so in love with him. And I think that's really important. That can make or break you as a person. Because I talk to
Mm.
many clients who relationship is the biggest thing they suffer in, especially if you live with them. It's like, well, you're going to see them in the morning and you're going to see them at night.
Mhm.
You stop seeing them in the morning and night, you find out they're cheating on you. So it's like, and so you're not happy, or you're not happy to wake up with them. You're not happy to see their face when you fall asleep. This is a red flag. You don't have to live this way. I'm not encouraging divorce, but also it does exist for a reason.
Mhm.
So, what's more important, the shame, quote unquote, of getting divorced or misery morning and night? If we were to weigh our options, what does that look like? So, getting rid of the bads, whatever that might be inappropriate, in the good, making sure that my partner was very emotionally, mentally, physically healthy. He's a strength trainer, so he's also like a personal trainer and a wellness coach. Thing was continuing learning, being brutally honest with myself, exposing childhood trauma to my family, and having these tough conversations that I knew would make me the black sheep, and I still did it. Like that idea of it can get worse before it gets better. I just leaned into it. I was like, screw it. I'm just going to lean into it and whatever happens, happens. Because of that, I was able to build my resiliency. I was able to count on myself more. Another opportunity when you start setting boundaries or speaking the truth and you find out who's really here for me and who's not. And the people who aren't down for me, like, it's fine, but you won't play a role in my life. The world doesn't revolve around me, right? Like, people can
Mhm.
live without me, but also I can
Mhm.
live without them.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true, and, just having, like, that mindset and just, of course, just, like, taking away the bad because, like, when the bad is here, it just makes your life just, like, more stressful than it has to be, and
It
I
has
really
to be. Yes. There's a solution. There's a solution, and it's called, like, separating yourself. Family, friends, colleagues, like, it's called boundary setting.
I love boundaries. I can go all day about boundaries. I love a good boundary. And it's like I feel like now more people are talking about boundaries and it's just like so important. And like I know people who are just don't leave marriages because I guess not with the shame of the divorce, but that can be there's like a little bit more to it from certain people that I know who won't leave a divorce. But it's true. It's like, would you rather just like be miserable your whole life or just kind of like rip off the band-aid and just like
Yeah.
go for it? Because like some people when I want to go through the hassle of like going through a divorce and especially if you have kids, custody battle.
Kids is the
That's the
biggest one.
hardest. Yeah.
The other way I reframe it to them is, for example, this happened to one of my clients. She found out that her husband was cheating on her.
Mhm.
They have a young daughter together. Oh, she was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, I'm not here to tell you what to do. This is your life. This is your life. But I will say, would you tell your daughter if she was in this circumstance? Like, is it okay for men to cheat on women and vice versa? Even if she ends up loving women, like, is it okay for her partner to cheat on her? Is that acceptable? She started crying and she's like, I would never want my daughter to go through this heartbreak. That's such disrespect to her and her mind and her body. And I was like, okay, well, this allows you. And usually that's the advice I give. What would you tell your kiddo? What would you tell your best friend? So much easier thinking of someone else than yourself.
That is amazing advice. I didn't even think about that because like even though the mother's having a hard time like getting a divorce because think about custody battle or like they may think that if they separate that the kids will not have a good life because then it's like oh you got to spend this week at dad's and this like the whole that whole thing especially if you were a child of a divorced parents and such you may not want that for your kid but as you were saying it's like if that husband is cheating on you or mistreating you or just treating you like a freaking slave why would you want to set that kind of like why would you want to show that to your like your daughter like it's basically saying like dad treats me like this like they're gonna like even if you don't say to your daughter oh this is how it's supposed to be like she's gonna have a mind of her own and she's gonna be like
Really?
oh, well if that's how it's supposed to be then I'm gonna attract men who's gonna cheat on me it's it's crazy and it's just so sad it just makes me really
So
sad.
sad.
Like, I'm just so grateful I'm not in this position. At least I don't think I've ever been cheated on. I don't know. I have a theory that I was, but there's
Oh,
nothing to prove it.
the
I don't know.
proof.
It's one of those situations where like I had like a feeling this person was like talking to somebody else because just the way he would talk about this girl, and I'm just like I was also on the college program, so I was in a different state. And so, yeah, so I was like, okay, it was just that feeling, right? And then he broke up with me, and I'm just like, all right. And then like a month later, I see on Facebook they like started dating, but the date was like 2 weeks after we broke up. So I'm just like, okay, clearly there was something going on, right? Like you
Totally.
even if he wasn't, let's say physically, like I don't know, making out, having sex or whatever, like there's a thing called emotional cheating. And I feel like it's something like a new term that I learned recently because when you think of cheating, you think of someone having sex with somebody else or kissing or, things like that, right? But it's true, like emotional cheating is a thing. So even if you're not touching that person, it's like you're still talking like boyfriend and girlfriend. You're still being like, love you, or, it's kind of like you have two girlfriends, right? So I have a theory that was happening. I have nothing to prove it. I had absolutely no idea. But also, it kind of happened for a reason because he ended up turning into a woman. So
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
it
I
probably
guess
wouldn't have lasted at either way.
exactly my point. Exactly my
Like,
point. Yeah, exactly. So I guess it was better to that happen that way than like if I was dating him or if I even married him, right? And then I
uh,
found out he didn't is was really a woman, then that would have been a lot harder on me. You know, like obviously I support trans, but it's like no one talks about how it would feel for the person who it's kind of like a Kris Jenner, like how she went through that. It's like we support trans, but when you're on the other side and it affects you, like, oh, I thought this, it just, honestly, when I found that he was trans, which was like less than a year ago, and I found out through my friend messaging me because she has him on, and it's also I have to change the whole thing. Like she has her on LinkedIn. So I was like, oh, is this person? And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay.
like
And
what
then
the hell?
so then I looked up this person on like
Uh,
I knew where they worked, and it was like on like a college, so they had the staff or whatever. And then I saw a picture, and then she was like halfway there, if you know what I mean. And I was like, all right,
Confirmed.
obviously support, but also I had no idea. It was kind of like one of those moments where it's like I never even thought that was gonna happen. Like I had no idea. I felt like so blindsided. And
Uh,
so that's where I'm just like I also felt really bad for remember that girl he left me for, right? I feel bad for
uh,
her. I feel bad for her because they were dating from like I guess when did I do the call? 2016. No, I guess 20, let's say 2017. It was like December of 2016. So let's say 2017 up until because I guess up until I guess he transitioned because he did reach out to me randomly in like 2020 just like oh how's life. It was just out of nowhere. I was like oh I've spoken to you in like 4 years but okay. But it was kind of like a little weird. And then, but I know that he was still with that girl. So that's like already 3-4 years, right? And so here and there, I'll be curious. And I was like, I noticed that they weren't engaged. I'm on Facebook and I noticed they weren't engaged. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to assume anything. You never know really what goes on the other side. Like maybe he couldn't afford a ring yet, or just not ready, or she's not, you know what I mean? Because I
like,
knew that he would be interested in marriage because him and I like we dated for 2 years. We did have these conversations about potentially getting married.
uh,
So I know he had that interest. So I was like, oh, maybe it's her, right? And then years went on. I'm like, oh my God, they've been dating for like 5 years. Like, I'm surprised he didn't put a ring on it yet, right? And now I know
you
why.
should interview her. Hey,
I
no, no,
do.
no, not your ex. You should interview the person they started dating.
That would have been scandalous. I'd be like, what
Be
is the title going to
amazing.
be?
It would be
Talking with my
amazing.
ex's the girl that let that I don't know talking to the girl that stole my ex. I don't know.
That's I didn't even say stole my man, but like, yeah, stole my ex.
I mean, kind of in a way. Like I don't know. I never spoke to her in my life, but I
Uh,
mean, I guess it's like it's kind of like difficult. I mean, at the time, I like hated her because well, the emotions and everything naturally. But like it kind of feels weird. We never had a conversation. I'm sure she knew I probably talked a lot of shit about her. Like first she knew that. I'm sure she knew I hated her. You know what I
we're
mean?
2 years in with him, and 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Come on, there's
Yeah, I so
absolutely no way it
disrespectful.
started later, and
Yeah,
comes out of nowhere. Give me a break.
yeah, yeah. And they met like in a class or whatever. And it's like maybe it would have been different if I was still on site in college because I was seeing him every day. So maybe it would have been different. But since me being in a different state, that made it a lot easier for him to get closer to her. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that would have been interesting. Like, having, I don't know. I feel like that's also, what if my ex that's a woman now hears that? I feel like that's just like, I don't know. I want to be a little sensitive to that because, like, if anything,
As
who I
long
want
as you don't use names, like I don't know, is it's
true.
so
Yeah.
if you getting the inkling though, like maybe you wouldn't like it. I think it would be amazing and scandalous, but also like educational to hear her point of view because I don't know
Yeah.
if this is inappropriate to say. So I'm all for the trans community. Like,
Yeah.
if you're an adult, do whatever the hell you want with your body. You sleep with
Right.
whoever you want. Like,
Yeah.
literally, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if this isn't nice, but when you when you're dating someone who then transitions, especially if you get married, you didn't sign up for that.
Yeah.
Same if someone like realizes later in life like they're a lesbian.
Mhm.
Each their own also. Like I want everyone to sleep with who they want to sleep with. But when you got married, you didn't know that person was a lesbian. It's like, yeah, maybe we should separate because when I got married, I married a straight girl. I'm picking this up, right? I'm talking like as if
Yeah.
I'm a straight guy. But it's different. Like I understand why the breakups happen. You can still love that person, but no longer want to have sex with them or be that type of bonding anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I did like low key want to interview my ex just because I always want to have the topic of transgenders and like
You know?
transitioning.
Yeah.
And I almost did. There was this one person that I asked and he was like all about it. And he just like just stopped replying to my messages. And I was like, okay, like whatever. There's so much hate in this world for people who are trans and it's not fair. And people hate when they don't understand. So
So
that's
silly because it's like, why the F do you care?
exactly.
Why do you care? This is how I feel about people in uproar about the gay population. I'm like, why do you care?
Yeah.
Like, I'm so confused why you think this is any of your business.
Yeah. And then they like to mask their hate by saying like, "Oh, because of reproducing and it's gonna like I'm like, we have enough children in this world. Have you looked at how many people are in the foster care system? If you care so much about reproduction and everything, like just you should be focusing on adopting people from the foster care system. And like there's so many kids who are not getting the love they deserve. Why are we not talking about that? Why are we talking about, oh, these gays are ruining our society? It's like, no, you just feel uncomfortable. So you're masking, you know you're an asshole. So you're trying to find some type of logical reasoning that doesn't make you feel like an asshole, making you turn gay people into these evil people who are ruining society. It's like, no, you're the problem if you're not like thinking about the kids in foster care.
Right.
It's just so sad what actually like if they age out, like I can go on about that. Yeah, and the foster care system is also not that fun. Like I told you, my boyfriend was in it. And it's some really dark shit that he's been through and such. So it's like we need to focus on that. We need to put our tax dollars on that. We need also we need to talk like we like this should be the conversation. Now what people are doing with their bodies, now what people are who they're having sex with, like our priorities as a country is just not like this is not a political
Ridiculous.
podcast, but it's like I
Ridiculous.
think it
It's
like I think based off our conversation, I think our values align. So that's why the only reason why I said that. But yeah, no, it's just now that I'm talking about it, I'm just like, what is wrong with people?
get like that sometimes too. I can get like that sometimes too. Well, and like minorities. When some of my
Mm,
clients tell me the shit that they've gone through, I'm like, what is wrong with people? You did not pick where you were born and you did
yeah.
not pick your skin color. Like the way you were raised for the most part as children, we didn't pick our religions. Now we can as
Hmm.
adults, but like
Yeah.
can't believe these are the hills to die on for some people. There are so much more evil out there.
And it's like it's sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Like there was a phrase and I wish I could think of it, and it was something like, if you are not feeding me, housing me, or effing me, I don't care what you do. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how we should be thinking. That's exactly how we
Yeah.
should be thinking.
It's so crazy how like for people's energy is at. It's like there's so much more to worry about in this world and you care so much about who's in bed with each other. It's like who cares? And
Other
anything
thing
I
I think is, why are you projecting? Why are you so against this?
yeah.
Say you want, for the like the straight guys who freak out about gay guys, I'm like, just say you want to kiss a guy. Just say you're curious. Like, I don't know why you're freaking out about this.
Yeah, just
Especially,
stay
yeah.
curious. Yeah, and also the other thing too is like I feel like some of my gay friends are like the funnest people too.
Kidding me? I mean, yes, for the sass, but also the most like give a fuck, like go ahead, like live your life. Like they're not there to judge. Well, maybe in the again, little sassy way, same with me. But
Yeah.
like go live your life. Go
Yeah.
go on. You're on my pay no mind list. Well, I wish more people did that.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. Your book, Should I Wish I Knew in High School. what is it about? What's in it? Like, where can people find it? Like, floor is
I
yours.
I originally wrote it for my sisters. Like
Mhm,
the whole thing was written for them. There was like pretty scandalous stories. For the most part, I think like I kept all my scandalous stories in the book for the public too. But wrote it for them when they were in high school. Now they're in college, and it was just shit I wish I knew in high school, like about boys, about health, about college if you do want to go to college, about friends. Pretty much picked a topic that would I talked about finances, like all of these different things that I wish someone told me. I really wish I had an older sister. Like, I
mhm,
really wish I had an older sister because I didn't such a disconnect between my mom and I, especially with like her hardcore Catholicism.
mhm.
I didn't have anyone, like, especially a female. I didn't have anyone. So I wish someone, especially someone talking about sex or drinking, like, I wish someone was just upfront and made me comfortable to talk about these things. So essentially, word vomit. I say some scandalous stories about what happened to me and different characters in my life. And adults who read it were like, number one, I needed this in high school, but also I need this now. So also appropriate for adults. I cursed a lot in it, apologetically. That was another thing, like teenagers curse. Why are we acting like they don't? Every parent who tells me my teen doesn't curse, I'm like, yeah, sneak in while their friends are there and see how they act when they don't know in your room. Like, maybe that they don't curse like a trucker like me, but teenagers curse. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, no one's perfect, you know?
Why
Like,
not? Like, are you kidding me? This is, again, like, this is your hill to die on.
mhm.
You can do it, don't do it in a professional setting. You know what I mean? Like, know your audience, but
It's all about knowing
also,
your audience.
if that's the worst you're doing, okay. Hey,
Yeah, I'd rather you curse up a storm than hate on people.
seriously.
Priorities. And the people who hate on people who hate on like trans and gays are like, how dare you curse?
Oh, and I'm like, how dare you put your negative ass energy near me? I will say, like, do really love my clients and I don't judge
Mhm,
them. And I always say, like, people are people are people are people. Care your gender. I don't care the color of your skin. I don't care how you were raised. I don't care your age. We all have these basic emotions, and nationality gets cheated on.
mhm,
Nationality can go bankrupt. Any
mhm.
nationality can have a child who passed away, or nationality can suffer from addiction. It doesn't freaking matter.
No, you're
Yeah,
absolutely
there are
right.
studies that may say like women are more prone to blank, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen to men or vice versa. So I try to remind them that.
No, it's true. And I feel like when people think like, oh, people who have this skin color are more likely to have this, it's like people forget that it's not saying only this skin color experience. Like, no, it's just statistic and numbers. And it could be another thing too. It's like people have to understand like how they get these numbers. It's like some things maybe some things don't get reported, or it's so much more complicated. And like, I don't know, if it's something like drastic, like 90% more, like 90% more women, then okay, then I think it's less likely to be false versus like 4%, and like, you know what I mean? But
Also, we studied psych, so we understand studies. Like, who paid for the study?
true.
What was the population? How many people did you test? How many studies have been
Exactly.
out? The big one for me was learning who's paying for this study. I was
Mm.
like, holy crap, that explains everything.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that is so true. So like, going making your like opinion off statistics, I don't really like, it depends on the situation too and who paid for it, but it's like, how do you know if these like numbers are right? Like,
Self, it's for the most part, like, they're just giving their self assessment.
yeah. And so, but no, it's definitely true. It's like saying like, oh, this person is more likely to, I don't know, fail at this or something like that, right? I don't know. But then it's like there's more of these people in this group and the other group, so the numbers aren't really fair. So it's like, how can you? It's not equal. So there's stuff like that. Like people don't really think about that. They just look at numbers. It said this, so it has to be this. It's like, no, let's do some critical thinking here. Let's think outside the box. And most people don't do that. There's even like majority of the people when it comes to like news and articles and such, like especially on Facebook, you'll see an article, you'll see a headline and you'll run with it. And you don't even read the article.
Just thinking this too.
You see a headline, like for example, some of the people that get like really like shitted on in the media are the Kardashians. They get shit on all the time. A lot of people, they see the Kardashians as like they get anything they want because they're pretty and they have big butts and like they're not smart and they're whatever. But it's like they don't actually look into each individual person. I watched the show and I've watched from like the first episode up until like their newest, and it's like there's a lot of character development. And like of course in real life because it's like reality TV, but in the first like the first couple of seasons, yeah, they look like party girls and they're not going to be taken seriously. But also people don't understand that they weren't producers of the actual show. So the producers are, even though it's reality TV, it's really not reality at all.
Cherry picking events.
Exactly. Another thing too is that my friend, he was supposed to be on a reality show, and the reality show is pretty much he's a public relations guy, which he is in real life, and his clients were like people in fashion, right? Which is not a lie, like he does that in real life. So Hulu reached out to him, was like, oh, we want to do the show. It unfortunately didn't pass through the network, so it's not like actually really anywhere to watch, which I'm so upset because I want to be like, oh, my friend's on Hulu, whatever. And so anyway, so I'm on his close friend's story, right? And so I see behind the scenes of a lot of things. And he said that there was a scene that they were like at like a lunch or whatever at a restaurant, and his close friends, which by the way aren't really his close friends, they're just like people that he just probably met that day. They were told by the producer to say XYZ to him, so it would upset him. And at the time, he didn't know this because the producer didn't tell him. So he was triggered at the lunch and I guess was, I don't know, blowing up or whatever, just like any human being would if you were like, they were, hitting the wrong nerve or whatever, right? And after they were done shooting, he goes to the people. He was like, what the fuck? He was like, why would you do this? Why would you do that? And they were like, the producer told us to do that. And he was like, oh, wow. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, I trust my friend.
What did he have to gain to lie to you about that?
So that just proves right there that reality TV isn't reality. So if you see people blowing up and looking like shitty people, something probably happened in the background. Or the producer would probably like, oh, can you go punch this girl? Go punch this girl and see how she reacts. Like, that's what happens. It's not just like these people just carrying around cameras, just filming what's like, you know what I mean? So it's like if you're
fun, totally.
Right. So if you're seeing like, for example, like Jersey Shore, you see a lot of like people punching people in the face, or like, I mean, we don't know these people,
shit
obviously.
Behavior.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure they probably are party people in real life because there is a part of a truth in the actual reality show, but they like to emphasize everything and blow everything up to make it look crazier because they have to entertain the public. That's the reality. So when people talk all this crap online, like, oh, I can't believe this person did that, it's like, you do know you're feeding it, right? You do know that most likely this isn't the truth. And this is why these producers, their goal in life is to make money. They don't like, they're not there to make this actor or whatever, this person make them look good. Like, that's not their job. They're gonna make them look horrible. And another reason why these reality people are rich is because they get paid a lot of money because they're pretty much throwing their life out there, and they're taking like, okay, I know I'm going to be shitted on. I know the public is going to think I'm this person. So that's why they get paid a premium. Like, that's just how it is. Like, it's always the people who aren't in like the media that don't get it. And I can go on and on about social media too, because I'm a social media manager. So like, I'm in that world of social media. Like, I live and breathe social media, and I know how easy it is to be deceptive to the public, manipulate. I know how to manipulate easily. So it's like, if I know that, listen to me. Like, if I see something and people freak out over it, I'm like, I can see how they could have edited this part out, or they could have switched some things. Like, you know how easy it is to just switch things around and have one person say one thing, one person say the other thing, but it's not really like connected to each other. And you put it this way and that way to make them look like, and completely twist it. Like, it's so easy. It's so easy. So yeah, I could go on and on about that, but
Talk about social media for an entire seat. Oh my God. Right. I talk a lot about digital wellness with clients or
yes.
that's a really hard thing to teach younger people that social
Mm,
media is all fake. Like
100%.
80% of what you see is complete bullshit fake. The more you have to convince me how spiritual you are, how healthy you are, how much you have a loving relationship, the more I know that that's not true. Because
No, you're
people who
right.
are healthy and happy and living right, they don't have to prove it to someone. Like the more you have to prove this to me, the more I'm like, ding, 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 ding.
True.
Okay,
And you know
something's
what's
wrong.
crazy too is when I see like these, like just these. I mean, they're basic Instagram accounts, and they just all they post is like their family, which is fine. Like it's your
Yeah,
family, right? But it's like when you post these picture perfect photos, especially in the photo studio, those two, it's like, and that's all they post. So that's where it shows. It's like, are you trying to prove something to me? That you're like a happy family? Let's get real. Everyone has baggage. So it's just like
seriously.
and this is also psychology too. It's like I can easily read someone's Instagram feed. Easily. It's like you can't BS me.
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's wrap it up here. Is there any last piece of advice that you would like to provide my audience who are people who are most likely to listen to this, probably has like a struggle with their self-esteem or confidence? Like what's a piece of advice that you would like to give them?
I think maybe this doesn't answer it exactly, but there's a quote that is coming that just was downloaded that I want to say is I forget where I read it. It's not my quote, but it's don't go to anyone for wait. Don't take the opinion of someone you wouldn't go to for advice. And I think that's really important, like especially with social media or feedback from friends and family. Like if you wouldn't go to them originally for advice, then their opinion means nothing. Just
No,
try to
that's
live
great.
life that way.
I read that somewhere too. I think I read it on a social media post, but I'm pretty sure that quote was probably taken from like a could be a book or something like that.
Like I'm right. I
Yeah.
probably saw it on Pinterest one day. Like
Honestly, yes, I've seen that quote like recycled in like different forms of media content. But yeah, I know exactly what you're referring to. There's also another quote that I want to mention that I live by is don't let the behavior of others destroy your inner peace.
ooh, seriously. Say this really quick and then I'll stop. That's what I teach clients about the circle of control. Like
Mm,
inside is the only thing you control. This inside. Your thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Anything outside of that circle, you have no control over. So
mhm.
don't let them don't allow them to destroy your inner peace. That's the only thing you can control.
Exactly. Another thing too is like I'm pretty sure you saw it's like a picture where the most like intelligent people aren't the ones that like bark at other people. They know how to keep their cool. Like for example, in
Yes.
like debates, like I'm sure you've had your fair share of like Facebook debates, arguments, whatever. Like this it's all over social media,
Cringe. Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Like you you can tell if someone's projecting, it's like for me, like I'm all about debating with people in a very mature way, just having conversations. Like I've had conversations with people that I don't align with their values, but I'm curious to see how how they like why they think a certain way. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Like how'd
open
you
to
get to
listening
this
to that.
opinion? I just want to
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
exactly. Like I may not like, for example, I don't like that they hate trans people, right? I don't agree with that. So I'm like, okay, let me at least give you the benefit of the doubt. Why? What made you have this opinion? Did something happen in your childhood? Like, why are you forming this opinion? So I have these conversations just to at least let them to tell, like, give me their idea or whatever. And if they don't, I still don't agree with them. Yeah, fine, whatever, move on. I'm not gonna be like, well, fuck you for thinking like this. I mean, yeah, in my head, I want to say that, but like, I'm
Also,
mature
like
enough.
an adult and you don't have to be in my life. Never
Exactly.
talk to you again. That's fine.
Yeah, and there's so many majority of people in society bark. I use the word bark. Like
That's
they
such a
bark
good
at
word.
people. It is. I don't know where I got it from, and a lot of people say it. It's like you're just barking. Like you barking at each other is not doing anything. It's like we're adults here. Can we just have an adult conversation? Like it's normal for people to have different views. They have different views because they grown up in different environments. Different environment, different view.
People in the
So
same family can grow up differently. Same house,
yes,
around the same
yes,
age, or even
yeah.
twins. Like It's
Yeah.
our own personal
Mhm.
experiences.
Yeah, and I've had a conversation about that with somebody else, and it's like, think about it like this: the firstborn can have a different experience from the secondborn because the parents, when they have the firstborn, it's a different experience for them versus the second. So that's someone that I don't know if she was a mental health professional, but it made sense. I appreciate you so much for being on this podcast, Annie. Thank you so much for donating your time for us.
Amazing. Thank you. I know I could talk to you for like 3 hours. So thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Of course. And for everyone listening, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day and stay tuned for next week's episode.